Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lachelle Weemy, a peak performance coach and business strategist dedicated to helping you see what's possible within you, the blind spots that are holding you back, and the solutions to ensure success and fulfillment without the hustle. I use my secret sauce of metaphysics, brain science, and scripture to work with God to manifest your ideal life and business. If you're ready to create massive forward momentum in your business and bust through the blocks that drag you down, join me on the Spiral Up journey and create the clarity, confidence, and consistency to become the CEO that lives your life by design. It's time to create the sustainable impact, income, and time freedom you desire faster. Now is the time to spiral up. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Spiral Up podcast. I am your host, Lachelle Weemy, and today you guys are going to get a chance to meet, to learn from, to be inspired by storytelling expert Kris Jones. You guys, this woman is on fire when it comes to everything copywriting related, and she helps you to rise above all of the competition out there to make sure that your story stands out. And you guys are going to fall in love with her as much as I did. Girl, Kris, like, you give hope, you give practical solutions, you give people the idea that it's possible. And I cannot wait for all of us to spiral up alongside of you. As everybody, you guys haven't heard probably, but we just rebranded the Unstuck podcast into the Spiral Up podcast. And Kris is one of my experts in Spiral Up. Spiral Up is all about forward momentum. It's all about preventing ways that we spiral down in our business. It's all about giving that amazing hope, those practical tools to level up in all the ways that you need to in life and in business. And goodness, you guys, like, there is a reason that Kris is one of our experts. So girl, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, how you serve people, just literally what lights you up?
Well, Lachelle, thank you so much for having me. That intro just got me really pumped up.
Yes.
I'm really excited to be here today. So my name's Kris. I have a boutique agency in Portland, Oregon called Red Door Designs. And I love helping female entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, service providers, anybody that solves an important problem. I love helping them really get to do more of that work. And I do that by helping them tell their story online. So their website or their sales page acts as their top sales employee. So that page, that one page, can do all that heavy lifting of selling for them. So by the time they get on the phone with a potential client, the client's sold. They just have to, process the credit card and start the process.
Gosh, absolutely. I mean, we sometimes underestimate the power of our website, and it's really like home based, right? It's like, you want to get to know me in every way that I serve people. Like, this is where you need to go. And if you can optimize that in a way that's going to tell your story efficiently and effectively and help grab that attention, like you said, they're sold before they even show up. And I love that that's how you work. And I'm super impressed by all of the amazing things that you've done in the past. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? How the heck did you get here?
Well, I've always been a visual storyteller. Like, as a child, I remember inviting a neighbor friend, a girl, over to play. Yeah. And I think she wanted to like watch Mr. Rogers or do, play dolls. But I convinced her to help me create a trifold vacation brochure. And
that's amazing.
I did that. We dove into my mom's stack of National Geographics and cut out a bunch of cool images and glued them together and folded an 8.5 by 11 into 3. And then it was like, voila, we have this like exotic pretend location that we can market. And so I have dozens of stories like that.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder, fast forward, 20 years later, I was doing a lot of visual storytelling for some of the big brands like Nike and Adidas, and really loving that work. Like, it felt very natural to me. And what happened was, I loved the work. I learned a ton. I got really good at what I did. Mm-hmm. But this was back in the day when like a beautiful website was really all you needed to really shine.
Right.
And what was going on for me is that my website really wasn't doing the work that it had been before. And I was really relying solely on referrals, and it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't predictable.
Okay, so Kris, like I am really curious on how you got to be where you are. Like tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, it all started back when I was about 8 years old. And I realized in hindsight, I've just always been a visual storyteller.
Yeah.
So I remember inviting a friend over, and when I was about 8, and she probably wanted to come over and play dolls, but I talked her into creating like a fictitious vacation trifold brochure.
Amazing.
And so we dove into my mom's stack of magazines and tore out, palm trees and oceans, and made this really beautiful place and folded it up into 3. And we had this trifold vacation brochure. So it's no wonder that, like, fast forward 20 years later, I'm doing similar work, not necessarily making trifold vacation brochures, but telling visual stories for companies like Nike and Adidas and some big names that I was really honored to work with, and really kind of learn the craft through that. But what happened was, I knew every time I was driving out, to my cubicle in like at Nike in particular, I remember driving out there one day and just thinking, like, I feel like I'm dying a little bit inside every time I make this commute. And it's because I was an entrepreneur at heart.
Yep.
And it's because I was doing enjoyable work, but it was really kind of for the big corporation rather than like for the entrepreneur, which that's just who I have the heart for, because that's who I relate to the most. And so I shifted the work I was doing to be more focused on branding and website design for small business and entrepreneurs. And as that happened, again, I really love the work because I found it really meaningful. But this was back in the day when, like, really all you needed was a beautiful website to do well.
Yeah.
And I could do that. But as the landscape online changed, the effectiveness of those websites wasn't doing as well. And, to be perfectly honest, even my own website wasn't getting me the kind of leads that it used to. And I was really relying solely on referrals to keep my business afloat, which, referrals are great, but it's hard to run a predictable, profitable business based
the predictability
only on referrals.
Right.
And so right about that time, a client came to me. Her name's Elise, and she had a publishing background. So she was like, oh yeah, I got the copy part. I'll get you my website copy. You can take it and make it beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect. She was really excited about this company that she was launching. And so we set the deadline for April 3rd. And she called me on April 2nd. And she was like, I don't know what's going on, but I cannot write my darn website copy. I don't know what to say. Everything that I write, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't, I'm going round and round, and it just feels like torture. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure how to help you. I can't write it for you, but you could hire a couple, you could hire a copywriter, which she did. She hired a couple copywriters, and like, you can talk to some old clients and get insights from them. You can try kind of a templated approach. She tried all of that. It just didn't feel like her. And I think fundamentally what wasn't working is that she was kind of in a pickle because she couldn't outsource her own voice. She was the brand.
Yes.
But yet she, as the business owner, was so close to her own business that she couldn't get the perspective that she needed to talk about it.
I can completely relate to all of that.
Yeah.
100%, you know?
Yeah. So it's like, what do? You're like in between two options that don't feel quite right.
Right. Yeah.
And so essentially, thanks to Elise, I went on a total mission, a quest to figure out how to tell a compelling story in a website environment, because the website environment's very different than other environments. And
Yep.
I really wanted my clients to have one page on their website, because I think that's all we need is one page on our website that really does that work of selling for us so we
Yeah.
can do the work we love. And so I flew across the country. I became one of the very first story brand guides before the book Building a Story Brand came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I
Which
just
is
dove.
like it's such a classic, you guys. So if you have
Oh
not
yeah.
read, Story Brand by Donald Miller, like
Yes.
this is what she's talking about. And that was one of the most fundamental resources that I had when I started my journey in business. So absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, I got to work with Donald Miller, who is a genius.
Yeah.
And I just went down every path to absorb this ability to communicate
Yeah.
well in a compelling way, in a way that was actually really effective.
Mhm.
And I came out the other side of that and started applying the storytelling techniques with my clients, and magical things started to happen. I was getting phone calls. I got a phone call from one person who said, I'm actually charging 6 times more for the same service. And it's because we were communicating the value of that service.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yes, and he had been on the verge of burnout. He was just charging not enough
Yeah.
and working with clients who were driving him into the ground.
Mhm.
And then when he shifted the way he communicated the problem that he solved, he
Right.
started attracting high level clients. So the irony is he was charging more and he wasn't having to work so hard because
Yeah.
they were like low maintenance clients.
Yep.
And yeah, and so it just like people going from 0 to like 6-figure months,
Yeah.
and all kinds of things happened. I had another client who just had a record breaking number of lead calls booked like the month after we implemented. So, and the same thing happened for my own business. So when I applied it to my own website, the same thing happened. I was getting booked out. People were really excited once they got on the phone with me. People were taking the train to Portland to come meet with me in person. And it was wild. It was
Yeah.
really wild to watch like what a difference the right words can make. And
Yeah.
the reality is like we all buy a lot of things on Amazon, but we look at the picture. But really, when we make our decision, we're reading the reviews. We
Oh yeah.
go to read the
100%.
reviews
Yeah.
about the product, and that's when we purchase. And it's not all that different on your website. I mean, there's more to it than just having a few good reviews, but people buy when they read the words
Yeah.
that help them know that you're the best person to hire for this.
Absolutely. And I mean, what you're saying is resonating with me so much because I feel like I ask this to my clients a lot. It's like, I find that a lot of people struggle with clarity. Like, I don't know what my thing is. And once they figure that out, like the rest of it starts to fall into place. But a great question to go there is like, if you could be the best at X, what would that look like?
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
you just kind of leaned into that and you're like, okay, well, this person has this need. And then you just made the decision to fly all over the place, to do the training, to do the things because you decided to be the best at that. And then your own business has completely exploded because you stuck with this amazing thing that you were good at and you put forth the effort towards it. I think a lot of us can get caught up into, we want to wear all the hats. We want to be able to do all the things. And you and I had just gotten a chance to talk before we started recording. And it's like, yeah, just because I can teach somebody how to write copy doesn't mean that that's my zone of genius or that's what I want to do. Why not have them work with somebody who that's their zone of genius, right? And
Right.
when I get a chance to concentrate my efforts on becoming the best at my zone of genius, that's how my business starts to shift.
Mm,
And so it's
so
like
true. Yeah.
it's not only just like recognizing that you lead into that as an example for all of us,
Right.
but also as an example of, hey, if this isn't your zone of genius, like we have someone here, guys, that knows everything that you need to know about copywriting, especially on your website. Like, how cool is that?
And one point I want to make about website copy is it's so easy when we're entrepreneurs to kind of get distracted by shiny objects,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you scroll Instagram, everyone's got their own solution and their own like hack
Yes.
for how to get this done.
Yeah.
And what I love about the work that I do is it's just about what's essential. What's the least you can do to get the biggest amount of impact.
Yes.
And it's just like building that foundation of a home. Instead of before you decorate the house and
Yeah.
hang art on the walls, you want to have a solid core foundation. And I think of your website or your sales page as the center of your universe. That is like the sun. It's the sun in the universe, and everything else spirals around there. And
Mhm.
so you don't want to waste a bunch of time posting on Instagram
Right.
when it's pointing people to your website that doesn't reflect, it isn't in
Yes.
alignment with who you are and what you're doing now. So you end up wasting a lot of time, energy, and money when you don't have an effective website. And when it's
Absolutely.
there working for you, you can just send people there knowing that it's going to be doing that job for
Absolutely. I
you.
mean, if you have a kind of a weak part of your funnel, then your whole funnel is at jeopardy of not working as well because of that part. And so, like you said, if you're leading people to that, especially sales pages, you're out doing a live launch and then you send everybody to your sales page and it sucks, then how is, all of the work that you put into your live launch, going to bring you the income and the impact that you really wanted to make? So I'm
Right.
really curious, like, do you go in with clients that come into your sphere of influence and audit kind of what they already have and then make suggestions and then go ahead and execute, or do you usually just start from scratch?
We usually, the way it works is I typically get on a money-making messaging call with my potential clients,
Okay.
and we assess their current situation. So
Yeah.
we kind of, the metaphor for what I do at that point is we find out, where are the holes in your boat? Where are you leaking trust? Where are you, missing information around your story?
Great.
And we figure out like what you need basically.
Yeah.
And then as we work together, we really do typically start from scratch, because usually the website copy that you've got is, things have changed or you've gotten clarity, or my process, I don't really typically work with the copy you already have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to just know, because of the fact that you're having these money making calls, the fact that you are looking at people's websites that are already in existence, what are the top mistakes that you find people are making that would come to your mind right away?
Well, I think the first thing I want to say is there's definitely like one big mistake that most people make.
Okay.
And that is making themselves the hero of their own story.
Absolutely.
And it's just natural that this happens because we have a website.
Yeah.
Usually it's templated, Squarespace or Wix or whatever. I don't care. I love all the cloud-based builders. I think
Yeah.
they're great. But those companies are in the business of, or their templates are set up for a brochure website, not a high converting strategic website or
Right.
web page, right? So you pick a template that you like and then you fill it in according to where they give you the information to do that often, And so that tends to, like, you've got real estate on the internet, but it's not actually converting for you.
Right. Right.
And the other mistake that happens is because of what I call the curse of knowledge, which just means you're so close to the work that you do that you've forgotten what it's like to not know what you know. And so we often talk over the heads of our clients without knowing that we're doing that. We
Yes.
forget that they're like at a different phase of their journey than we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when you make yourself the hero, kind of back to that first mistake, it's really about talking more about you than talking about what matters to your potential client, we want to really prioritize and show them that we care about them. We care about their struggle. We care about solving their problem. And we, as the guide in the story, and they're the hero, we can show them what's a better future for them.
Yeah.
So all of that happens before we even introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
And 99% of the websites out there for a self-employed person, it kind of leads with, hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I'm all about. But we haven't yet earned the right to do that until we've shown them that we really care.
Yeah. And I think that one of the questions that people might have that are listening is, okay, you said that I'm the guide. A guide is somebody who has to kind of know like the journey and wants to walk alongside of you because they've already been there. And so do you find that it's hard to be able to express like, hey, sister, I've been there. I get you. I've struggled where you are, without making it about you? Do you know what I'm saying? So like, how do you express the fact that you see them, that you get them, that you understand because you've been there, without making it about you?
Right. I mean, that's where the nuance comes in.
Yep.
You're really, they think you're talking about yourself, but you're really talking about them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's the power of really good storytelling.
Yes.
It's nuanced.
Absolutely.
And that's why, like, when you go on Instagram and you're like, but all my mentors and the people that I look up to are talking about themselves, they're really talking about themselves as it relates to you.
Yes.
But it's hard to pick up on unless you really know how story works.
I love that so much. And what are some tips then that you would give somebody who's listening? They're like, okay, you've given me hope, right? Because that's, you know, you've done that by just sharing with your story about all the people that you've helped and the struggles that they've had, which relates to us. So you're fantastic at storytelling, by the way. So what tips then could you share that would help somebody be like, okay, like there's hope, you're giving me hope. Now what? Like, where can I start with just a small thing, of a small shift that I could start with today until I get a chance to have a money-making call with you?
Right. Well, first of all, I really want to let your listeners off the hook around why copywriting is so hard. Like, why is it so hard for us to write for our own selves? Like, even if we were great at writing in college, or like my client Elise had a publishing background, it's because of the bottle effect. When you own your own business, you're inside the bottle trying to read the label of the bottle that can only be read from the outside. And so it doesn't matter how much you try and muscle your way through it. You can't get that perspective because you're just too close to your own business. So I want to let everyone off the hook. Like, it's not just hard for you, it's hard for everybody. And that's why, you know, having a partner and working with an expert is so important. And then the other piece I wanted to share is that I think, you know, rather than hiring out copy, which can often, like we mentioned before, feel like outsourcing your own voice.
Right.
I take a really collaborative approach to copywriting. And so that's why I can capture the voice that's perfectly aligned.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my, you know, past fears when it came to hiring copywriting, because it's like authenticity, vulnerability, all of those things are huge parts of my brand. And I'm like, how could I possibly have somebody else, you know, share my story, because it didn't feel authentic no matter, you know, how I tried it. And so that's why, you guys, finding somebody that's right fit, that's willing to take that extra time, that's willing to kind of get in your head while still maintaining the perspective from the outside of the bottle, right?
Right. And a big part of it is knowing the right questions to ask. I know exactly what to ask to pull that story out of your brain and put it together for you. So as far as tips go, I would say I would love to break down like what are the components of a story, because there's only 3 real components. And I think once you know them, you'll really look at things differently, whether it's your website, social posts. It'll also change the way you watch a movie too, because you're like, oh, every story, every book, every movie follows this format. So essentially every story begins with a problem. It begins with a hero that has a problem, and that hero doesn't know how to solve their problem. That's your potential client, right? They're online, they have a problem, they don't know how to overcome themselves, and they're looking for you, or they're Googling you, or asking the friends in their
Right.
network about you. And they have a problem. And then about halfway through the story, or about a third of the way through this story, they meet a guide with a solution. And that would be you. And another example of that might be like Yoda, or Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid.
Yep.
He was a great guide. And so we introduce you in the story a little bit farther into the story, not right at the beginning. And then that guide really helps that hero find success and avoid failure. So that is the recipe for every story known to man. And when you apply those principles and that simple flow to your website, you pull people in. Our brains cannot help but engage. When we begin a story with a hero that has a problem, our brains get pulled in, and it's impossible. And it's impossible to disengage, just the way it is when you go to a movie,
Right.
and your butt's in that chair for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And you don't check your phone for 90 minutes. You don't think about your to-do list. It's because it started with a hero that had a problem they didn't know how to solve.
And I mean, that's so beautiful, because you've mentioned a couple of things that I want to highlight to you guys. Like, number one is that you don't bring in the hero or the guide into the story until a little bit into it, right? And so that's what she was saying, is that too often we're like, hey, look at me, I'm qualified because of this, this, and this, right? And so allowing the hero, the potential client, be the main star of the show is going to help to relay this feeling like you're here for them, and it's not just about you, right? I also think that one of the things that I've found in business is that people will spend money when you can help them get more money, more time, or more control. And so when you are focusing on those things, maybe right off the bat, sometimes people are so caught up in their own problems that they can't even envision themselves getting to the solution. So when you walk along the story with, what Kris is saying, it's like you're acknowledging the problem, and then you're giving them this journey to get to the solution, instead of, blasting the solution right away, because they're like, that can't happen, or I can't even see myself in that story yet. Right. And then when you allow the guide to be able to help them create the solutions, when you can focus on helping them find more time, more money, more control, condensing time, like you were saying, or, avoiding the mistakes and those types of things, that's when you're like, that's what I need. Where do I sign? Right. And it's so brilliant how you take people through that process. And it's not just the pieces of the puzzle, but it's the very unique sequence and the right pieces in the right order, giving the right story to lead them to where you want to go.
Yeah. And people are really motivated to avoid failure. Like, they want success, they want more time, they want more money, but they're even more motivated to take action if it's going to help them avoid failure. So part of a good story is really creating that healthy tension between success and failure. And that's where it becomes really compelling.
Yes. I mean, by acknowledging it, and that's just like, honestly, good salesmanship is like recognizing, right? Like, you're just like acknowledging the bad.
Right.
And making sure that we, I hate to say it, but it's like, not like poking the bruise, but it's like making ourselves aware of it, of the consequence to not doing something, allows us to get into action more readily. So it's not doing it in a manipulative manner, but it's like acknowledging, like, hey, this is a bruise that I want to avoid for you. So this is where we're going to go.
I mean, they know what the failure is already, right? They know that, but I think that part of the story where you kind of help them, remind them, like, what's at stake, really, what's at stake if you do nothing. Absolutely. I think of that as the biggest gift you can give to them, because they don't want things to continue to be status quo or to spiral downward, right? They don't want that. And so you're gifting them with reminding them, this could happen, but I can totally help you avoid that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
so perfect. Okay, so Kris, is there anything that you have not had a chance to talk about that you really want to touch on before I ask you a few more questions?
Yeah. I just wanted to share that, story can be kind of confusing or daunting for people because they aren't sure how to do it or what to say. And I just want to remind you that it's not necessarily about telling your story. It's about inviting your potential clients into a story with you where they play the character of the hero and you play the character of the guide. And
Yes.
so it's really inviting them into a narrative with you. And when you do make yourself the hero of the story,
Mhm.
there's really only room for one hero in every story. And the
Yeah.
hero is actually the weakest character because
Yep.
they don't know how to overcome their problems. So we never want to paint ourselves as the hero. And when we do that, we really kick our potential clients out of the story with you. You know what it's like when you go to a
Right.
website and you're like, oh, that person's cool, but I'm going to keep looking,
Yep. Yep.
and that's what happens. They're like, you don't establish that resonance that's so important and build
Yep.
that trust. And that's the power of story.
Absolutely. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. You guys, like, I hope that you are getting as much out of this episode as I am because Kris is amazing. And if you're scrappy like I have been in the past, like, definitely check out Story Brand by Donald Miller if you guys want to just read something. But I'm going to be honest with you, like, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that I have a lot of books behind me. And I think that oftentimes what happens is we read something and then we never execute it. And so I find that many of us kind of get caught up in that. So you're going to want to make sure that you're taking advantage of a money making call with Kris so that you can get out of that slump and actually get into action. Everything that I talk about is all desire, decide, do. You have to desire a better for yourself. You have to make the freaking decision to do something about it. And then you have to get into action. So, Kris, I would love for you to tell us, what is your favorite tool to spiral up, to keep yourself in forward momentum for anybody who's listening, can easily, get caught up in the things that drag us down. So what's your favorite tool
Yeah.
to maintain spiraling up?
Well, it's kind of twofold. Number one, I love this little digital timer to show
Okay.
me. I use it many times throughout the day. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I've got 15 minutes to
I
get
have
this
one.
done.
This is
Yeah.
mine. It's Mine is a month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What's you?
Similar. So, but once I started putting everything into my calendar and like color blocking things and time blocking things, I think that's for me the main thing. I live by my calendar. I used to have a to-do list a mile long, and now I know if it'll get lost in there. If I want to actually get it done, I put it in my calendar, and I have periods of each day where I'm either doing calls or productivity.
Yes.
And that is just, I live by it.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I love that. You said you have two. Is
That was the timer and the
timer
calendar.
and the calendar? That's amazing. And
Yeah.
just so you guys know too, like, I am just a huge fan of productivity and time. And I do something very similar. I learned this from Sarah Light, who's another expert of the soul planner. And it's just like making your to-do list, brain dumping it, and then assigning it to a day of the week and then a time of the day. So it doesn't just become this daunting list, but you're literally making an appointment to finish it. Really does help. And then as far as like mindset goes, I would love to know, Kris, like, when you find yourself spiraling down, as all of us can from time to
Yeah.
time, what is something that you do to pick yourself back up?
Go on a walk, move my body, get outside. There's magic happens. There's a lot of really beautiful things that happen in the brain when you're just doing a gentle forward movement walk.
Yes.
That's, I think, the best thing that you can do is kind of step away and just
Yeah.
get perspective.
I love that so much. And so you guys know that you can certainly check out all of the ways to connect with Kris inside the show notes. If you are somebody who's struggling with designing your life, you want to build a life by design, and you really want to have all of the tools available to you for you to step up, to maintain that forward momentum, to spiral up, and to prevent yourself from spiraling down, you're going to want to also check out the Spiral Up Up program on my website. And you are absolutely welcome to have a discovery call, breakthrough call with me, so to figure out how we can get you into that forward momentum and spiraling up. So, and you would have an opportunity within our program to have the chance to meet with and work with Kris right here. So I am so honored, so grateful to call you my friend. Thanks for being a part of this. And you guys, I know that you loved her as much as I do. So give us some feedback on that. Share this out in the social media channels. Let people know that they should be watching. Hit subscribe, leave a message, leave a review, leave anything that tells us like what you took from this episode, because we love that. It fills our hearts and it fills our souls and it fills our energy so much. So make sure that you do that. And one thing that I want to wrap this conversation up with, and I've done this since I've started the Unstuck podcast all those years ago, is ask my guests to think of one question that's going to allow the audience to go from where they are to where they want to be. So what question would you love for them to think about and ponder that's going to kind of get them moving in the right direction?
What would your perfect day look like?
Love it. Yeah. Love it. That's amazing. Yeah. You guys, thanks so much for listening. I will see you here next week at the same time. And Kris, thanks so much for being here. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, wait, before we go, if you want, I would love to share my freebie.
Yes, do it.
Want that information. Okay. So if you are ready to dive into story and you don't want to spend any money, you can go to reddoordesigns.com. That's Red Door Designs with an S at the end. .com, and I have a free download. It's called How to Write Compelling Copy in 5 Minutes Flat. Ooh. It's a 5-minute video and a worksheet that you do while you watch the video. It's the best way to just dive into the things that we talked about today. And then I also have an offer on there to, if you're just done with the DIY thing, you can have me write your copy and have it be all done in 2.5 hours flat.
Girl, that's amazing. You guys, make sure that you check that out. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys all later. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Each honest review helps me spiral up so that I can serve you even better. Whether you're feeling a lack of impact, income, or time freedom, or perhaps you're just ready for massive momentum in your business, let's chat. Apply for a breakthrough call so that you can gain clarity. Identify what's holding you back and make a plan to spiral up. Head on over to im-lifebydesign.com/breakthrough or access the link in the show notes. For immediate support, log into our community, the Better Club. We focus on inspiration, tactical guidance, and support. This is a community that wants to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business, and we're going to help you do the same. Let's spiral up, friends.